debate, what it is, blah, 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 blah. This is what we're going to turn it into, okay? We're going to call it the expansion of your consciousness. And tonight, on whatever, December 20th, we're going to finally define consciousness. I kid a little. We'll just, we'll hammer it down a little bit more. We're going to use a couple terms here that are somewhat familiar and somewhat not familiar, okay? So growth is the expansion of your consciousness, which consists of PQ, IQ, EQ, SQ, and a bunch of other things in your brains. But for now, PQ, I'll start with IQ. We've all heard of IQ, intelligence quotient, ways to measure mostly linear thinking, things like language, things of that nature will kind of get lumped into it, left brain thinking, things like that, okay? Very masculine style thinking. Some have heard of EQ, a little less so. Emotional quotient, that's how we interact with each other, mirror neurons, things of that nature. How empathetic I can be, how much I understand what someone's going through. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not really great at it. I'm continuing to, nurture that, prune it, work on it, because like compared to my wife, who's like able to see a situation and be able to empathetically bond, but understand what's happening much quicker and better than me. But you can work on that. PQ is your physiological quotient. That's your body moving through space and time, right? We all remember like being one and like trying to pick our nose and keep getting my eye. Now I don't do that, right? But if I pick up a toothbrush with my left hand and try to brush my teeth, I'm like, whoa, this shit is still difficult. We're always mastering how we move through space and time, but also those Maslowian physiological base needs, food, water, sex, air, sunlight, the list goes on and on. There's all kinds of books on it. And SQ, I like to think of that as spiritual quotient. What I do to feel at one with nature, okay? So I'm gonna also throw another little term at you called enlightenment. And again, I'm really generalizing here, but this is what I feel enlightenment is. We all know, the Niels Bohr, oh, that looks like boobs, diagram of atoms. Enlightenment is you moving through space and time with the least amount of disruption to it, unless you want to disrupt it, right? If I do this, some air moves, nothing really, probably no one in Japan just died. If I like flick this, I'm watching this little piece of paper float around. If there was a bug on it, the bug dies, there could be this crazy chain reaction. Every day we move through this space-time and we do that. We impact other atoms that are around us, our own and others. And then again, breezing through this stuff, its measure is how much love you bring into the world, okay? That's how I measure it. The more you're able to love, the more you're able to be compassionate to mankind. That's kind of its measure. Your understanding of these four things put together. Now, obviously, consciousness is also our awareness, it's our perceptions, it's our beliefs, it's our thoughts, it's everything that is there, plus probably some kind of quantum connection to the universe that's beyond us, that beyond just like a psychedelic experience, but we felt that, like most people have felt those moments of like, oh fuck, there's a lot more energetically going on. Some people call it God, some people call it the Akasha. There's all kinds of words for it. And what we're talking about is using some of these things to expand our consciousness. And when we do that, we grow, okay? Now, we've already discussed that incorporates two things. One, new neurons, new experiences, but it also involves getting rid of the shit. I call that integration and disintegration. It's a two-factor thing, and again, we'll touch on it a little more. So let me put it into a handy dandy growth. Now, of course, you guys are sitting there and you all have your perceptions of what growth is, but I think we're all kind of talking about it. It's our ability. I think in the Declaration of Independence, for example, that's what the pursuit of happiness is. I don't know why, that funny written way of writing happy, that's what it is to me at that time. But anyways, blah, 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 Jeff. Okay, so there it is. We're going to graph it out in a second. Rick Alexander put me onto a great book once upon a time, completely changed my life, and it's called Power versus Force. Power is love, force is fear, emotions. That's mostly what we see in the universe right now. Anyways, this guy, David Hawkins, not Wheels, the other Hawkins, lived in Sedona, and using applied kinesiology, muscle testing. Some of you might remember this, don't say when or where you've seen it, to actually score, quantify a human's level of consciousness. Now, when I think about it, I think of it more like a smiley face, because I don't demonize fear. I think it's just as important as love, but it's really understanding how to use it. But anyways, he graphed it like this. And down here are your fear-based emotions. Guilt, shame. I can't remember the exact order, but anger, pride. Again, thanks to Rick, there's this word right here. Anyways, fear-based emotions, sadness, we felt them, depression, things like that. They kind of feel like that. It can be very acute, like fight or flight, or it can be more chronic over time. Something happens when we're courageous. Think of courageous as your brain's never been there. You have never been there, and you step into something completely new. You're like, I'm going for it. You know, can be head down a little, but it's usually like you're intentionally stepping into the hero's journey. What can happen, again, I don't remember all of them. These are love-based emotions. You know, way up at the top is things like enlightenment. This very much sought after word, peace, joy. I think we know what we're talking about there. You know, we could break those down and be like, oh yeah, these are all, you know, adrenal cortisol kind of hormones, and these are more dopamine, serotonin based, but that's not the truth, because you can be pumped full of serotonin and not be up here. It's much more complex. You have to live life, experience life to get these moments. Some people theorize that you can't actually do this. I personally disagree. That's what fucking life is all about, is climbing up that, you know, expanding ourselves for ourselves in the universe. So that's the scale of consciousness that we're kind of expanding here. Now we're going to take it back to more of a scientific model. We're trucking along over time. And I exaggerate this bubble. We move into overwhelm. Overwhelm usually goes right down to the impulse level. Now let's think really acute, right? The bus example, you jump out of the way, flooded with fucking things that take your attention. If we're looking at the triune model of the brain, take your attention and focus you on it, laser focus you towards it, okay? That's okay. If it's just a bus, you get out of the way and you're like, okay, you know, I don't gotta hate all buses. You know, some buses are pretty cool, right? We incorporate that. We incorporate our experience, we integrate it. Yes. Yeah, I don't think I'm saying anything though, right? So Jess is just reminding me not to give away any of the stuff from the process. I don't think I have for like Ashton and stuff like that. Okay, like I said, all good. Your body metabolizes that moment in time, you integrate it, and you carry on, you maintain your level of consciousness. A couple things can happen. Maybe from this bus moment, you have a deeply spiritual awakening or something, and you come out of it and you expand. You expand what you are. You've now taken your experience and it's actually changed you. It's started to prune neurons. It started to have you look at the world differently. Holy fuck, life's really good, you know? Now, that could last for a little bit or it can not last. You know, this here is arbitrary, that jump in consciousness, by the way. You know, remember that scale here? They're exponential. So you don't just jump from fucking sadness into enlightenment. Maybe it feels like that, but you know, there's a lot of work in between there and there. Okay, now let's say this is chronic stress. It's not the friendly bus. Okay. What it'll do is it'll start shaping your perception. Think of perception as what's called subbasal ganglia thinking, okay? It's where your emotions exist a lot. It has executive functions. Executive functions are things like, oh, I can move that over there. You know, I can manage my time. That's all like kind of executive functions. Like my dog has a basal ganglia down and he has some executive functions, not nearly as much as us, right? The problem is if you're in that stress state for a long time, it starts to shape that perception. If you're not tending your garden, if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating right, you know, all the Maslowian stuff, if you're not doing that right, it just, your body's gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm in survival mode. I gotta keep fucking surviving. I gotta stop, keep dropping these stress hormones, which will, just gonna call it beliefs for now, your values, which I would love to get into, your upper cerebral area. It starts to shape it. Most people's way of thinking has been shaped by their DNA, how they were cultured and raised, and how they spend most of their time. If you look at their week to week, that's your brain is shaped there. Lots of us think, oh yeah, I perfectly chose to get right here. And some people have, and they're few and far between, but that's awesome when you can actually have these moments and be there. Anyways, the problem is you have an experience that you can't quickly integrate. You can't make sense of it. You can't overlap it with your reality. Your ideality, your view of reality, or you're unable to put it together, as Rick says, and that leads to suffering. That brings you down and then down, okay? And we call that non-coping. This is why so many people are in therapy. This is why so many people aren't thriving, aren't happy. Right now is a really particular time because the COVID, no matter how fucking cool and tough you are, has done this to you. I don't know about on purpose. I don't know what the scoop is. If someone's attacking us on purpose or if it's all an accident and just the news loves, to add insecurities or whatever in the market and it's a blah, 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 right? Who knows? But it's all human doing. But it can all lead to this non-coping. And in this example, we're talking about after the process, okay? Where you've gone through this very carefully calculated. I know because I had a big part in designing it, designed to do this, to nurture the conditions for this. What happens is then you get the beauty of having a shift in perspective, okay? But it's gonna feel down here. It's okay to drop, come back up. Maintain's good. This is maintaining. We wanna go up. That's the plan, right? We're gonna kind of mostly chat about non-coping. I gave you some examples of people who don't cope. By the way, this usually ends in fucking catastrophe, suicide, a complete recluse. I think that's where a lot of the DSM things start to come in. It's amazing. Someone needs to come in. The disorders, the personality disorders that this non-coping can fucking do and what therapies can pull them out of. I'm not going to go down too much of all the tools. I'm going to give you guys some of them. Some of them you've seen, some of them it's like fucking broken record. Like I said, though, we're not looking to just maintain. We're looking to move beyond this state. So what happens is people are trying to move their perception into this new reality, and that never will happen, because what happened now is the veil's off and you're like, oh shit. You try to stuff that back down, you don't integrate that or disintegrate it, which is, sometimes the way it goes. Sometimes we want to take experiences with us and sometimes we're like, I can move on past that, Again, there's all kinds of therapies out there to help people do that. But at the end of the day, I think, and this is just me, when I was born a human being, I knew how to be a human being. You watch a kid play, move through its environment, until an adult fucks it up, it's usually pretty good. Of course, you got to nurture it into society. Can't just, you get that image of children being the president and running companies and stuff. It'd be pretty crazy. I'm still letting people in. Okay. If you say you're doing these things and you completely, it's okay. You're going to ride that curve of life. We'll call that the highs and not the lows. That's the deep depression, fears. That's the highs. That's going to happen. The only thing that will numb you to that is fucking high-end narcotics, and you will be numb. You won't be living life. You won't really feel the highs and the beauty of the lows. This is fucking holy ground too. This is part of life. This here, we taste the fucking sour so we can enjoy this more. And that expands. And the more you fucking travel that, the greater these joys can be, the happier you will be. It's not like you're going to be here all the time. A small little story. When I met Jess, for 2 years, I swear this is where I was, and I felt insane. I honestly, I felt so ungrounded. it was like, oh God, like I couldn't maintain this reality. My brain was like, no, I need some of this shit here just to fucking, feel this. Being here in the non-coping stage for a long time, that means something's unhealthy. Most likely your physiology is a good place to start. It's simple, I'm not going to even write it down. Your base needs have to be met in a healthy way. You are an atomic quantum structure. And if you are putting shitty atoms into your body, you're not going to be thriving. You're going to probably get sick. You'll be stressed. You won't be thriving. You'll carry around extra weight. Inflammation. We met with an amazing neurologist in New York, and she was saying that her first sign for like really deep stress is inflammation. It could, Donald Trumpy kind of looking people, the belly that's like really pushing out and like red splotchy skin and stuff like that. Pains like rheumatoid arthritis that's always flaring up. I have arthritis, and as soon as I fucking move off the knife's edge, off the path, it acts up. It's a great litmus for me. I was blessed with arthritis. Okay, so physiology. Make sure do that right. Think air, water, food. Respect those things as they go in your body. Don't take it for granted. Because if you're gonna, you could put sprinkles on a turd, but it's still gonna taste like shit. You got to make sure that's going good. But we're gonna move up those needs, and we're gonna expand on them a bit. All around the world, there's these things called blue zones. I think there's 6. One of them just fell off. The gist is people there live longer than anywhere else on the planet, on average. They have the most centurions. Okay, people who live to 100. Neurologists have done these studies on people who tend to live to be 90. And they're like, what? Oh man, what? Science is. Let's be all reductionist about this. We'll get to the one thing that makes you live forever, as if there's like a magic thing. Maybe telomeres. It's this right here. It's a very simple word that I can't spell. Community. We've been filming this doc now for months, and there's one thing that every moment has every therapy, everything that seems to have one thread, and that's other people. Human beings are meant to be hanging out, laughing, crying, listening to music, fucking suffering, striving. This is my favorite. A lot of people there's a lot of programs out there right now that are like, yeah, suffering. Suffering just to suffer is just adding more suffering, and it sucks, and it's not worth it. Striving. This is suffering together, building deep limbic bonds with a purpose, goal oriented together, really building community. Suffering with purpose. Suffering can be something for your kids. It can be a lot of things, but do it with purpose. Don't just fucking do it to do it. Anyways, those through lines, it's people. There's not one single therapy that there isn't a point where there's an interaction with someone else. Like, you could be like, well, I like to get out in nature. Yeah, that's all good. You like to get out in nature, but if you're in non-coping, usually what will happen is someone will be like, hey, let's go out into nature. You know what I mean? Let's go do this. Hey, you need this antidepressant. You interact with the doctor when you haven't interacted with someone. That's why this is so important. This is why, I got to the point of like, I got to do this more. We're going to do our once a month because I feel if we're going to crack, the egg that is the mind potentially, and I don't mean like smash you, but if we're going to be involved with that, I also really want to continue to help nurture the other aspect, because I'll be honest, I'm a little tired of how some things are, not with you guys, but it's time we do this shit on purpose and do it well. And we can only really do it together. And that's where we start to make sense of this. That's why I ask you guys, hey, what is being out of alignment, or what did I ask? When you're in overwhelm, what does that look like for you? Because, people who study Jung, study Freud, study whatever, the archetypal expression of those emotions and feelings is fucking I don't even know. I mean, that's what art has been about for fucking thousands of years. You know, humans have been trying to like figure this shit out. Oh, horse. And it's difficult. But together we talk about it, we laugh about it. Sense of humor, huge. If you are not laughing in your life, you're doing something wrong. Doesn't mean you have to be fucking, I don't know, maybe none of you, but most of you have probably seen the movie The Joker. You know, he just laughs all weird and at the wrong time, trying to use his sense of humor to understand society, but he's all fucking, it's all off, right? You got to use it right. I did have it right. I've like evolved this expression that's based on another guy named Lewins, but personality plus environment equals your behavior. If the behavior you want isn't happening and you're trying to change yourself, you need to look at the environment, okay? So we have this thing called desires, and I'm using desires because it's kind of been around for a long time. It's the things that we want on an impulse level, but also higher, right? Oh, I want the yacht, I want this, I want that, I want this, or at least we think we do. Maybe some of it you do. Maybe you're hungry and you desire some food, right? When your desires, once again, you know, you're desiring something, the behavior you want, you're trying to change yourself to fix it and it's not happening. There's what's called discord. And the more discord you have, the more drama you're going to have in your life. And you can get addicted to that. You can get addicted to those. Remember on that scale, those low vibrational emotions are very addicting. They've served us for potentially millions of years, right? We'll see you, Mitch. It was, I'm glad you stopped by, buddy. It's been a while. I hope things are good. Yeah, that discord and desire. That's the whole, like, yeah, you know what? I want this, and you get there and you're like, oh, fuck. You know, sometimes the worst thing you can have is the fucking thing you desire the most, because your desire doesn't actually mean it's going to lead to your happiness, right? Mankind, two kind of paradoxical thought. You only hit the target you aim at. Man has a tendency to hit the targets he aims at. Or if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. So what the fuck do I aim at, right? That's where you got to bring all this stuff in. But that's where I think environment is often overlooked. People are like, okay, I just want to keep doing the thing I don't really fucking want to do. And I want this behavior. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. The more you tend to your garden, the more you can exist there, right? You know, if your physiology is good, you got some good relationships, you can kind of bring it in. But there's those things that you got to get rid of. And we'll look at that quickly. I just thought of this kind of thing. You know, we were talking about tending your garden. I've been chatting with Luke about it. Because flowers do a lot of similar things to us. They have needs, such as food, water, nutrients, micronutrients. So fuel, sunlight, very important. Make sure you're getting sunlight. But there's this one, tropisms. So tropisms are stressors. So the wind pushing on the flower helps strengthen its cells. Think of yourself as a flower. What tropisms, you know, gravity is a tropism that pulls its roots down. The wind, the sun makes it grow towards it. There's a whole bunch of these things, but what they do is they stress the flower, right? Not every day is fucking sunny. Not every day is windy, but some days are really fucking windy. Some days I got water, some days I don't got water. That leads to physiological flexibility. And the more you do that, the more your awareness, the more your ability to be in an environment you don't want to be in happens. Okay. But here's the fucking important one. I don't know what a weed is, but look at the people who are close around you. Some people help you, you know, build a beautiful permaculture garden. You work together, you fucking use each other, not use, but you work together, you grow together, you thrive together. And other people are weeds. They will suck the fucking earth dry, they'll hog the sunlight, they'll emotionally destroy you. And some of them don't do it on purpose. Lots of them, it's like we go to work. well, I don't, but some people go to work, you know, and they're around these coworkers that are probably in the weed category. They're not doing it to be evil, but they're just there. So really take a look at that, because if we don't line up our ideality and our reality, you're gonna suffer. It doesn't mean there won't be suck. It's just now you're trying to fucking put that piece in the wrong hole, or a piece that will never fit that hole. So quick recap, in that garden, there's all kinds of stuff out there. I can tell you this much right now. Within our group, we got, you know, guys like Rick who run his menus group. Amazing place to tend the garden. There's a few ladies, you've seen them. I call them the Valkyrie. They are the ones who find the lost souls, not lost souls. They take the warriors. I'll leave it. Some of you have experienced them, but what they do is they bring a new perspective to us around language, around how we systematically experience the world, our behavior. So you'll see them popping in around, but I know you guys are doing it. You're reaching out to each other in this community, because I understand one thing. There's one thing we do when we try to bring these people into the community. It's you have the desire for this. You know, we don't always know the words for it, because there is no real word for it, but we all want to be the healthy flower, right? I guess what's a more manly thing than flower? The oak. We all want to be the oak, you know? And within the group, there's all kinds of things. So that's the last little bit. I hope this is kind of helpful. I know it's kind of all over there. The point is, you go through something, it potentially will put you into that recovery phase, right? You've gone through something overwhelming. Psychologically, I'm stressed. Even just being vulnerable can put you there. There's times when I discover new depths of my emotion and I'm vulnerable with people around me. The next fucking week, you know, I feel like curling up in the fetal position. It's so fucking jarring on my system. But just like those muscles, your brain's doing its thing, pruning, integrating and disintegrating, taking what you know, your upper cerebral wants to bring into its world, what your perceptions want, and it's like trying to figure this out. It's trying to delam it. I didn't mention it, but I do want to mention this, guys. I believe that if you are not dreaming, at least every now and then, especially not maybe not always into like a deep REM or something, but if you're not dreaming, your body's not integrating something, and that adrenaline level is probably keeping you high. That's its time to do a lot of that work. Obviously, we do it when we're awake, you know, us discussing. I learn all kinds of lessons. My wife teaches me stuff all the time, many times a day. But it's about integrating that, right? It's about changing my old patterns and bringing that in. That's okay. Being there is okay. PTS, post-traumatic stress, is about 30 days out. Now, remember, you know, some of you just came to the process and there's some fucking doozies, like great stories. The process didn't just put you down there. You know, you probably went home, had a beer, ate some shitty sugars, you know, maybe your relationship, you kind of like, oh, fuck. I'm in this relationship and maybe it's not serving me perfectly well. Got to get the groceries, got to drive. Driving on a highway is stressful. You know, even if it doesn't really feel like it because you're kind of on autopilot, it's actually using a lot of your fucking neural anatomy. So there's a bunch of things that are there. 30 days, that's kind of the medical, oh, I'm in a PTS. Any more, you can move into PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorders, okay? I think it takes much longer. I've been watching people's behavior, studying it, learning it. Behavior change can happen there for sure. There's things that can alter your life forever. But when it comes to this stuff, I think it takes much longer. I think we're kind of willy-nilly with the post-traumatic stress disorder term. But like I said, you honor that time. You learn to concentrate, you know, do things on purpose. You've got to keep concentrating. Every now and then, it's good to put a pin out in space-time that changes where you go. And you're like, okay, I'm going to move towards that. Remember we were talking about the arrow hitting the target? You know, you carefully do that. But you always want to be nurturing those parts of your brain. But then you also got to be meditative, where you detune your nervous system. You know, whether that's, I don't know, out hunting, wherever it is, you got to detune. Truly, for like a amount of time, detune. Our bodies are not I see Rick there. I could talk to him all day about Navy SEALs who burn out because either you go and you do your career and then you stop and you're like this fucking hodged up PTSD victim. Some guys have the ability to keep going, but if you're always on in the stress zone, you're gonna fucking just keep doing this. So you're not gonna optimize. You gotta detune, you gotta take downtime, you gotta decompress, you gotta move that nervous system. But again, that's kind of why we do it, right? It's just like at the gym, obviously I don't go, but at the gym, we stress those muscles, whatever, hyperflex, man, I wish I knew the terms, so that we can come back stronger. And that's, you know, kind of the whole, that's a tiny little micro piece of what the process is, but that's the gist of it. It's that place, that arena where you can do that. You can bring that in with people actually, I won't tell you that because there's some people who haven't been through it yet. What I'll do is quickly, if you have a big old question, ask me and I'll see if I can answer it. And then if not, I'll just quickly touch on the book club to expand our knowledge. And then Jess will show you guys how to navigate the Mighty Network. Rick, what's up, buddy?
Hey, brother. Man, I really appreciate this. That was great. I was like, really have a ton to contemplate. I was wondering, I had just two comments about two things that you had said.
Okay.
Cool. So it's so interesting. I just recorded a lecture series on like just sort of psychological reflections on the process of transformation. And in it, the first phase of transformation is dissonance, right? Which is confusion. And so just, Jeff, you had mentioned that a lot of people were feeling confusion. And it's interesting because, you know, there's a couple different kinds of growth, you know, there's, I want to get better at something. I know what I'm doing. I need to implement the thing that is going to make me be able to get this end that I'm after. And then there's like real transformation, which is you don't know who you're becoming. And so it is really confusing, and it shouldn't be otherwise because you don't know who you're becoming. If you do know who you're becoming, then that's not transformation. That's the other thing I was talking about, right? I'm just trying to move something in myself because it'll make me get love or validation or money or whatever I think I'm after. But real transformation is a process of breaking open. And so you don't know who you're becoming. And so there's this idea of amorpha T, which is Latin for the love of one's fate. And it's this idea that like you wake up, you feel like shit, like Jeff was saying with the lows, but also you feel like you shouldn't feel like shit. So you're like trying to get out of it all day, but maybe you should feel like shit, right? Like maybe you're in a part of your life where you're seeing something about your life that you're like, oh, fuck, I really need to change that, right? You never know what you're going to find out about yourself when you allow yourself to feel what you actually are. And so sometimes with those ups and downs through the process of transformation, because we don't know who we're becoming, it feels unsafe to us. And when we feel that unsafe, untethered feeling, I don't have control over my future, then we sometimes try to cling back to old patterns. So if you find yourself like kind of half wanting to go back to old patterns that don't serve you, part of it might be because you're feeling unsafe in the process of transformation, but actually you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You don't know who you're becoming. So just allow that.
Thanks, Rick. I agree 100% with everything you said. I'm glad there was some overlap. I did jot this down, guys. That's where this part comes in. You know, that's a tricky word. I'll use another Rickism. The universe will literally have billions and trillions of options for you to not meet your expectations, and only one way to meet your expectation. Expectations can be pretty fucking dangerous, you know? So there's this thing called surrender. Obviously, discipline is about expectations. And we touched on that quite a bit today about tending the garden, those things that you can do to properly nurture. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to look for the signs from the heavens, and where those two meet is flow. And you move in and out of those two things as you grow. And that's where the mirror of community happens best, because if it's great to go inwards, you have to go inwards and contemplate to find answers. But at the end of the day, I can only know myself in the matrix of fucking the 7.5 billion cells and this crazy, not architecture, but infrastructure we have, and how I interact with all that through you. You're like, you're really fucking that up, Jeff, or, oh, that was good, Jeff, or, I don't know, but maybe you should talk to this person, that kind of shit, right? As we're figuring that out, because it turns out we're pretty fucking complicated. We're complex organisms. Like, it's just a miracle. It's fucking a miracle that all these atoms materialize. All your atoms materialize in this universe. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. So a little bit of surrender for when you're discovering that, when there is that pressure of like, oh, I see it happen a lot. And if you try to stuff your new perspective into the old you, not going to work very good. If you've like sat on it, talked about it, thought about it. What's that about the egg, Phil? I'll check it after. And then, yeah, like Rick was saying, when you feel insecure, you're going to fall into either potentially bad patterns, or you're going to try to stuff what you think makes you secure. And there's a lot of things that we've been duped into thinking make us secure, but don't. I don't know. There's this one weird thing that happens, even for guys who don't make it deep into the process, but they're like, oh, I wish I was back out there. I felt a peace out there. I don't even know why, because it's definitely made to do this. But for some reason, they're able to surrender and they feel this ease at it. You just kind of like jump into the stream of the universe and let it do its thing, Now, you can't do that every day, right? We go into work and we have lives and kids and stuff like that. But this, we've all seen Joseph Campbell's fucking hero's journey. The hero goes here on purpose, okay? It doesn't mean that when he returns home, it might not be dark for a bit. He's got to find the elixir. He's got to find the magic within himself and alchemize that, change that into what he needs for him and his community. If I don't hang out here in the underworld, you can ask Jess, I get fucking bored. I feel like I'm so stifled and not moved. It doesn't mean that I don't hang out up here and try to play, do the things I want to really like nurture our time. So anyways, that's a good point to segue over. I don't want to keep you guys all fucking night. On the Mighty Networks, what's different than the Slack community is Jess will go through some of it, but you'll have the trials portion, the ultra shooting. These are two separate threads, but then there's a joint area, and Jess will show you this, where we can post between the two. In the trials, we'll continue trial-esque style. I think it's very important to have the accountability, and that's where the deep work will happen. That's where, I don't know, I don't know what's happening. How do I make sense of this? Or, hey, man, I can help you out with this. We'll continue on that DNA of the trials so Sean doesn't get mad at us again. Over here, though, what I want to do, I mean this, guys, that's where I'd love to see us post things that fucking do this, where they, moments of happiness, joy, gratitude, because you don't just fucking feed the dragon, you got to do, I don't even know what that is, but here, it's both sides, right? We got to feed the good and the stuff that also puts us into the vulnerable stage, the insecure stage. So yeah, things you're doing, things that you're going to do, moments of like just deep fucking, oh, I'm so proud of my daughter or whatever. Me, it'll be my dog. Anyways, Jess, oh, wait, okay, the book club. I'm actually kind of super happy about this. I really want these things to organically happen. And when Chad approached me about it, I was really pleased. Books are a great way to expand our knowledge, right? I mean, most of us read. If we don't, I don't know why you don't, but audiobooks are fucking great. Anyways, a whole bunch of experience, but instead of just like reading on your own, because what happens is you funnel that through your stereotypes and biases. And sometimes there's a lot of shit in books. There's a lot of like fluff and there's a lot of stuff that just isn't fucking helpful. So with a book club, we can work on like, oh yeah, okay. If you picture, truth in the middle and like Matt's tugging on it and I'm tugging on it, we can land on a good place. It doesn't mean we'll all agree. If we disagree, that just means we're not there yet. But it's a good chance to do that. So what'll happen is in January, we'll put out another poll. That's another great thing about the Mighty Network. We'll put out a poll to see when you want to do it near the end of the month. And then we might just like pick like a boom, this is the book club day, which I'll be honest, I'm the willow in the wind. You know, I like to have the options, but we'll go from there. Jess, do you want to, Jess is just going to take you guys through the Mighty Networks quickly, just so that you don't have to fucking try to figure every little bit out. I do invite you to scroll through it. It's pretty cool. Great place to share. Have some fun. Here, love.